Hello, friends. The 819th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. In the Kharkiv direction, attacks continue on the defenses of Ukrainian defenders in Vovchansk and on the northern outskirts of Lyptsi. Along the entire line from Lyptsi to Billy-Kaladias, the Russians systematically conduct air and artillery attacks on the defensive positions of the Ukrainian armed forces. In Vovchansk, fighting is taking place in the central part of the city, Ukrainian military expert Mashovets also said. The enemy obviously brought additional forces and means into battle in the Kharkiv operational direction, he writes. The Ukrainian General Staff does not mention Vovchansk in its latest report. The speaker of the Khortitsa group previously stated that the situation in the city and on the Kharkiv front as a whole had been stabilized. According to the governor of the Kharkiv region, Singubov, fighting in Vovchansk is taking place on almost every street. He added that the front line in the city runs along the banks of the Vovcha River. That is, the entire northern part of Vovchansk is under Russian control. Fighting continues on the second Russian bridgehead in the Kharkiv region, in the direction of the village of Lyptsi. Today's General Staff report states that the enemy continues to try to advance towards the village of Lyptsi. 4 of the 6 attacks were repulsed. Judging by the deep state map, the Russians began to advance in another direction towards the village of Zelene. Zelene is located near the border between the 2 current directions of Russian advance towards Vovchansk and Lyptsi. Russian telegram channels write that, in this way, the Russians want to close the flanks of the 2 directions. And they add that about a week ago there was already an attempted attack there, but the Ukrainian armed forces repelled it. Speculation continues to be heard that the Russians may launch an offensive in the Kharkiv region in another direction. The coming period will be very difficult. Perhaps the Russians will open one more direction, said Fedorenko, commander of the attack drone battalion of the 92nd Brigade. He added that we are talking about those sections of the border where they have not yet carried out shock and assault operations. At the same time, 2 days ago, Russian telegram channels already wrote that Russia had crossed the border in another area in the Kharkiv region, 15 kilometers east of Vovchansk. It was stated that the offensive was taking place in the area of the villages of Volokhivka, Chaikivka, Okhrimivka and Mala Vovcha. I note that from Volokhivka a direct road leads to Billy-Kaladias, which was named by Commander-in-Chief Siersky as one of the targets of the Russian offensive. One of the roads to Vovchansk also leads through Billy-Kaladias. Judging by the fact that after 2 days no news was received from this area, it can be assumed that if there was an attempt by the enemy to attack in this area, the defense forces managed to repel it. Other representatives of the defense forces say the offensive could begin in Kharkiv's neighboring Sumy region. Moreover, at any moment, said the Speaker of the State Border Service Timchenko, the enemy can at any moment, even though he does not have sufficient forces, try to do something similar, as is now happening in the Kharkiv direction. Precisely in order to stretch the front line, the line of active combat operations and actually stretch defense forces of our country, Timchenko said. Let me remind you that Budanov previously announced Russia's preparations for an offensive near Sumy, and the Ukrainian military announced the accumulation of enemy forces on the border near the Sumy region. Meanwhile, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced the capture of Klischiivka near Bakhmut, which was liberated by Ukrainian armed forces last year during a counteroffensive. The map of the Ukrainian resource deep state confirms Russian control of part of the village in the north, but in general, according to the map, it is under the control of the Ukrainian army. At the same time, deep state made it clear that the situation there could change, stating that it was being clarified. At the same time, a Ukrainian military man with the call sign Alex stated that Russian troops captured part of the position in the north of Klishchiivka. According to him, most of the village is in the gray zone because there is no place to gain a foothold there. Since yesterday evening, Russian telegram channels have been writing that the Russian army has captured the key height 215 in the north of Klishchiivka and advanced a kilometer deep into the village. There is also no confirmation from the Ukrainian side regarding the loss of heights. At the same time, in the central part of Klishchiivka, the enemy filmed footage of a flag being demonstrated on the ruins of one of the houses. The Institute for the Study of War confirms that Russian troops have advanced in the southern and central part of Klishchiivka after analyzing videos published by Russian sources. The General Staff announced last night that the Russians were conducting an assault in Klishchiivka, which was being repelled. This direction was not mentioned at all in today's report. In addition, Deep State reported the advance of Russians on the eastern outskirts of Chasiv Yar. At the same time, Russian telegram channels write about the difficulties of storming the Siversky-Donets-Donbas Canal in Chasiv Yar, through which the defense line of the Ukrainian armed forces runs. They say that Ukrainian troops have a lot of shells in this direction. In the context of the canal issue, it is worth considering the stubborn battles for Klishchiivka. If the Ukrainian armed forces have indeed lost positions on the heights around the village, and it is no longer possible to gain a foothold in the village itself, as the military says, then the defense of the Ukrainian bridgehead east of the canal becomes problematic. Thus, the threat of Ukrainian units withdrawing to the west of the canal becomes more likely. If Russia crosses the canal south of Chasiv Yar, then it has different options for an offensive, both towards Kostiantynivka and Toretsk, and towards Chasiv Yar from the south, but to the west of the irrigation canal. Actually, that's why the battles for Klishchiivka are going on so fiercely. And I repeat, there is still no accurate information whether Russian troops were able to take key heights near the village or not. Friends, this channel exists solely thanks to your support. If you have the opportunity and desire to support the channel, I will be very grateful to you. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.